I didn't find it credible, the fact that he could have worked for Jeffrey Epstein for this long in a very in-depth way, including before Epstein was originally arrested and found to have committed a sex crime. Then he continues to work for Epstein, and Epstein is constantly surrounded by young women, a revolving group of young women. Money's going into a black bag as Indyk and Khan are making withdrawals from Epstein's bank account. The idea that he saw no evil and heard no evil about the crimes that were being committed, I don't buy it. But more importantly, more important than what I think, the survivors have told us that it was not possible for those who worked closely with Epstein to not have known what was going on. Mm-hmm. They knew what was going on. And that's an important point that we have to continue to hammer home and continue to ask questions about.
Right. And to be even more specific there, Congressman, part of the reason we know that to be true is because a lot of these young women and girls were going to them over their immigration claims and their immigration needs. There was an exchange from Indyk's testimony that I want to listen to, and also Representatives Min's concerned that Indyk perjured himself. Take a listen.
6 or 7 survivors, when they got to this country, under the promise of a job of education, of modeling, whatever it is, they then have an immigration issue. So
I don't know. I don't know how they got to this country. I don't know about those promises. I know nothing of that.
He claimed, and I think this is in the statement you all received, that he had no knowledge of any women or girls, and yet that doesn't account for the fact that numerous women have described how he helped them fix their problems. One woman had described how he had helped her get an apartment. He helped women with their immigration issues. If I was advising him, I'd tell him to take the Fifth Amendment because I believe he's guilty of perjury.
Just to extend that even further, in reporting that our colleagues have done, there is at least one woman who says that in some of those conversations with Indyk around her immigration status, that he also told her not to speak with federal agents about Jeffrey Epstein. Do you believe that Indyk perjured himself? And do you have more questions for him coming out of this deposition?
I think it's very possible that he perjured himself with respect to his knowledge of the women, their immigration issues. What we haven't talked about yet is the marriages that Indyk and Khan helped to facilitate that, appear to have been fraudulent and be fraudulent at Epstein's behest. And look, I think what's outrageous here is we learned that Khan, Indyk, and we can go all the way back to Les Wexner, who provided a lot of the money for Epstein to commit these crimes, never investigated by the FBI. That is outrageous. If we had a serious Department of Justice that was serious about this issue, they'd be opening a new investigation and questioning these folks that clearly should have been questioned years ago.
Darren Indyk, the attorney from the clip Alicia just played, worked for Jeffrey Epstein, represented him for nearly 20 years.
23.
23 years.
Yeah.
He and Khan are now the co-executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate. To me, that says, or that indicates, rather, that they do have a vested interest in protecting whatever they think could be Jeffrey Epstein's legacy, and I'm using air quotes for people at home.
And they've received benefits
and
from
they
that,
received benefits from the estate. And so, do you believe that they were truthful, I guess, throughout their testimony? And then what if they were not, or depending on your answer, what does this mean going forward? How deep does the rabbit hole go here?
Well, you asked whether I was the one asking the question that was shown earlier, and I didn't ask that question, but I did ask Mr. Indyk how much he received in payment for his services to Epstein over the course of 23 years. And the answer was, in salary, $27 to $30 million. In loans that were never paid back, have not to date been paid back, $7 million, and hasn't yet received it, $50 million left in Epstein's will to Indyk, as Indyk claims he had no personal relationship or friendship with Epstein.
Just go give him.
You leave somebody $50 million that you don't know? You leave somebody $50
So why would you do that? Why would you do that? You want to make
Okay.
sure he's happy. Why do you want to make sure he's happy? Maybe he has information that at the time Epstein didn't want to be revealed. So we have to continue to pull every thread here. I hope one day we'll have a Justice Department and Attorney General who's serious and can have some of these real investigations and interviews with folks like Khan and Endike, building on what the Oversight Committee has developed to get to the truth here. We're not going to stop till we get there.
I want to shift real quick, because when you were talking about the payments and all of that, it reminded me of the Lewandowski situation, where there are allegations of his pressure to pay contractors to pay him, noting GEO Group and several other companies in government contracting have complained to officials in Trump's inner circle that Lewandowski, as a special government employee, has directly or indirectly stood to personally profit from the DHS contracting process, according to 4 senior White House officials, a former White House official, and a person familiar with the conversations. Now, for the record, a lawyer for Mr. Lewandowski told MS Now in a statement that he adamantly denies any of the allegations, which he calls not supported by a single piece of evidence. But that's a whole lot of people talking about your behavior.
Yep.
So somebody knows something to say something. What does that say to you? What are you looking at there? How does that proceed?
Well, that reporting is very well sourced when you read it. They have a lot of sources. And this is one of the biggest open secrets in Washington, right? That Corey Lewandowski has had his hand in this cookie jar. And you go back to Secretary Noman, the policy she put in place alongside her right-hand man, Corey Lewandowski, where any contract at DHS over $100,000 had to be personally approved by her. The whole world knew that Corey Lewandowski was the one signing off on most of those contracts. That creates a perfect situation for corruption and abuse, because all of the power is concentrated right there in the Secretary's office and with Corey Lewandowski. We now have reporting showing that they used that perfect opportunity for corruption and abuse to potentially line his pockets. We've launched an investigation. Democrats on the Oversight Committee have. Democrats on the Homeland Security Committee held a hearing today with ethics experts to talk about how this could happen, how it can be investigated, whether prosecutions can come from it, and how we can prevent it from happening in the future. But this is the most corrupt administration in American history, and this is a prime example of it.